one, go.
Yo, what's up? Bob here with Mazzy, Michael, and Michael for the Four Corners. This is the fourth Four Corners. That's right, four, folks. Four. Over to you, Mazzy.
God, I feel blessed. Four Corners number 4, and I don't have to say any more about that. We have from Louisville, Kentucky, from the Bob Bradley channel, Bob Bradley. He's below me on my frame. We don't know. To my left is Michael in Germany. To my lower left, on my screen at least, is Michael from Austin. So we got noted and archived. Michael in Germany, 45 RPM audio file, and the Bob Bradley channel, who is into all kinds of great music and into pressings and double pressings and all that. What we're doing this week and this time is we're showcasing records that we have duplicates of. 5 rounds each. Maybe it's because they're mono stereo. Maybe it's because they're different mixes. Maybe one's an audio file pressing. Maybe one's a different cover variant, or the track listing changes because of country, or for whatever reason, a single is added or a track is taken off for controversy or something. So we're going to jump right in and share our conversation about it. So leading off with Bob Bradley, our guest, starting off with your first choice. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, guys, when I was told that we were going to do multiple pressings, I started thinking about how did I get into buying multiple pressings and where did it kind of start for me? And oddly enough, it starts right here. Bam. Black Sabbath, Master of Reality, right? So this is your standard. This is a Terry pressing on the olive green label, right? And, you know, this is a fantastic sounding pressing if you're into kind of dirgy, you know, kind of dark, fuzzed out guitar, right? But everybody knows that the ultimate Sabbath pressing is the Vertigo on this swirl, right? And, you know, this is kind of the ultimate Sabbath collectible, you know, the Vertigo pressings of the record. But unfortunately, as my hi-fi system grew and became better and better, I started to realize that the standard olive pressing sounds better than the Vertigo, which is probably something a lot of people won't say because this starts at around over $100. This is UK Vertigo, and this is probably about a $30 record. So this one easily has just more drive, more punch, more clarity, and it is it's just a better sounding pressing than the Vertigo. And that's not typical of Vertigo versus US pressings. Usually the Vertigo is way hotter, way clearer, way better. But in this circumstance, I choose the olive green. Now, that doesn't mean anything. I still have to have this Vertigo pressing to be, you know, to feel complete. I have to have this, as well as all the other Vertigos for the first 4 Sabbath records. So that would be my first double pressing. You know, I have more copies, but
I'm sure you do. One thing I'll say about the early olive, like 1970, 71, 72 olive green Warner Brothers records, almost every record they put out, obviously depending, but sounds amazing. The Grateful Dead records around that time,
yeah,
as good as they are. I mean, that's the year 70, Working Man's Dead, American Beauty, Van Morrison, Astral Weeks and Moondance beyond that. I mean, those Randy Newman records, Ry Cooder records, of course, those, that's a really good time. Any olive label stuff you get, I would say that's my first pick. Well pressed, seemingly well mastered, you know.
Sure. I will say that if you have the first Dire Straits record on Vertigo, it stomps out the Warner big time. So yeah.
Has there been any newer represses of the Master of Reality that stand up
Um,
to those?
Me and Jeffrey Lee Puckett, who's sometimes on my channel, did a video for Discogs sometime back opening the new Rhino Sabbath box set. And that sounded pretty good and clean. Not quite as raw as the original pressings, I would say, but very nice if you don't have the first 6 Sabbath records. That box is very, very good.
Cool.
So, yeah.
How's it? I think I have was it the Rhino? Was it a Rocktober or a Rhino did one? Maybe it wasn't Rocktober, but 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, I think it was Kevin Gray, but maybe not. Bernie Grunman. I don't know. Oh well.
Oh, well.
Okay. Michael from Austin.
All right. I'm doing a jazz title. Which I only really got this record for the first song, Idle Moments, which Duke Pearson wrote that song. But that, as a guitarist, like that, this was kind of like an entry point for me coming into jazz, coming from the rock world mainly. This is an Analog Productions. I bought this just because I saw it in a shop. This is before I knew that Music Matters existed. And at the time I was like, sounds incredible. This is 2-disc, 45 RPM. And because of guys like Michael in Germany, he's a completist of some sorts. And I'm sure, Bob, maybe you are also a completist.
Somewhat.
That I'm like, man, I got a lot of the other Music Matters. I got to get that one too. So I did a shootout with my friend that had the Music Matters. They're both cut by Kevin Gray. They're both kind of, obviously this is a 45 RPM. The Music Matters is a 33. Cover wise, I don't know if you can see this. The Analog Productions one is a little lighter colored. The Music Matters one is a little darker saturation. And I actually just got this about a week and a half ago from Davis Winchester, BC guy who just lives a couple hours from me. I don't know why he didn't want it, but I was happy to pick it up. So I did a shootout a couple days ago again on my own system, and it's really pretty similar. The 45 is possibly slightly quieter in the black zones, between the tracks, but I mean, can't really go wrong with either of those.
Nice.
All right, that's all I have to say about that.
My turn. Okay. Not jazz.
Ooh.
Talking about Sade. Do you also call her Sade in the States, or you pronounce it differently?
No, that's how we say it.
So then I can stay with
The
Sade.
promotions of that album are wrong. There was a sticker that said pronounced Sade, Sharday, which apparently after all these years is not correct. It's Sade, right?
My second,
No R.
Sharday.
So this is the original pressing I bought immediately when it came out in Germany, and I think it was last week we got the Sade box, and I compared this half-speed mastering from Abbey Road immediately with my original pressing, and it was for me an astonishing thing, because up front I was very sure that nowadays they will blow the old one out of the water, but honestly not. The original is slightly better when it comes to bass and power. Live, it's more alive. The half-speed master from today has a better sound stage, better separations, but it lacks fidelity in a way, which for me is a bit disappointing, because I thought that if they do a remaster of this recording, it would be much better nowadays than around 30 years ago. But no, it isn't. It isn't. So the box set, if you have your 1, 2, or 3 originals in your shelf, maybe makes no sense. I think they will release the single versions, and then you can put out those you haven't already. But as I said, quite a bit disappointed with this one.
Were those recorded digitally, her albums, or are the first one, do you know? Does anybody know?
I don't know it for sure, but in this time, I think they did it digitally. I don't think that there are analog tapes. In that time, it was very rare. I think Alanis Morissette, I think, did an analog recording, but I'm quite sure that this is digital. But it doesn't sound bad. It's a good sounding record. Don't get me wrong, both are good sounding records, but the difference between them is not so much as I thought it would be. So that's for my Sade.
What year is that from?
Let me see. Give me 1985.
Second album, I believe, right?
It's the second one. You're right. Yeah. This is the only album I have as an original and as an original German pressing, so I can't compare the others. But
the first album sounds really good on Columbia. Really, I mean, that's one of those records also you'd hear everyone on CDs play in their car driving by. Smooth Operator was everywhere.
Yeah, she was huge in Europe too. She was huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And the stuff doesn't really sound dated 80s. It has this kind of exotic feel going. So I've gone in and out of listening to her, but it just makes you feel good. And it's just, especially right now, I think it's good.
I think musically you can't go wrong with her. Put it on and it's easy. It's a nice listening. Always a nice listening.
Yeah.
Nothing spectacular, but nice.
Okay. Well, I'm going to 1967 and an album music that I just love. And it's a problematic sounding record any way you turn it. And I'm going to show first Procol Harem album. Now, everyone knows Whiter Shade of Pale, which Whiter Shade of Pale, little trivia fact, is the most played song in the United Kingdom, adding radio jukeboxes everywhere in history. The most played song is Whiter Shade of Pale. When the album originally came out in the UK, it did not have Whiter Shade of Pale on the record. It wasn't part of the album. And in America, it came out like this. And the problem with this, it was rechanneled for stereo. And there was a mono version that came out in the States. And it was, it's really rare. You never see the mono record. But it's not a great sounding record. I mean, some will say this is one of the first prog records, but it's not really a prog record. It's really pop psychedelic. But it's so great with Gary Brooker's kind of white, blue-eyed, soulful voice. But this is probably the rarest of this album. And this is when the tapes went to Italy. This is an Italian-only pressing that is in mono, and it's theoretically one of the best-sounding pressings. And of course, they did this pink tint, which some people thought it was blasphemy, but I mean, it's pretty cool for 1967. Actually, this came out in '68 after the original album. Again, it does not have Whiter Shade of Pale on it, and the track listing for all three, the UK, the American, and the Italian, are different. Only the American has Whiter Shade of Pale. This adds on Il Tuo di Monte, which is them singing in Italian, Shine On Brightly, which was actually on their second album. So they stuck this on here. There's rumors I keep reading about this, and I've researched it for years because I looked for this record for about 15 years. And I finally found it about 5 years ago in Long Beach, California. And of course, when I get back, like 3 months later, I find the record again, just in a local shop. But unfortunately, it's well played, both of these copies. But the rumor is that the master tapes, this is the only master tape recording for mono, which really surprises me. And people will argue about that fact all the time. you know, you've heard these stories on some of these mixes we hear about where a tape goes to a weird country for whatever reason. It's like you and I, Michael, and well, we talked about this when I showed that Horzu German, the Please Please Me, Die Beatles. The best sounding version of that album by far beats an early Parlophone record. It's incredible. And somehow, how did the fuck did Germany get a better quality of tape? How did Italy get a better tape? And now these tapes are gone. They've disappeared, you know? So it finally came out. This is a Record Store Day from last year, double record, mono. Actually, it sounds really good. So I don't know what version of this is, what generation it is. And this has a second disc of the outtakes and Whiter Shade of Pale, and basically combines all the singles and everything. But if you like this record, this is probably the most accessible one. I thought it was only $1,000 for Record Store Day, but I see it for about $30-40 now, so it's not crazy money, but it's really great. So I'm starting with Procol Harum, a favorite band of mine, various pressings.
Very nice.
I've got the classic records copy from this album, and I'm very happy with it. It was.
Oh, you switched around here.
Okay. And I own the classic records. Let's call it audiophile pressing of this Procol Harum, and I'm really happy with. It's, in my opinion, it's gorgeous because they also put in 45 round per minute 12-inch from Whiter Shade of Pales, and that sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Is that? So I've been curious about that because that's like out of my reach now too. And I mean, they did do. I wasn't going to show this, but this is the 50th anniversary they did of just the record of the song Whiter Shade of Pale. You know, of course, it's on the original Fly. They were originally on Regal Zonophone in the UK, which is kind of like a label from the 1930s, I believe. But it's a great EP. So, I mean, it's such a great song. It's one of those cliche songs. Whenever you make a movie about the 60s, you put Whiter Shade of Pale on. But that, you know, and it's been, you know, lawsuits about that for years because of who wrote the organ part. Matthew Fisher plays the organ. It's like second only to the Led Zeppelin lawsuit with Spirit. It keeps coming back to rear its dirty head. So anyway, Mr. Bradley.
Perfect segue, Mazzy. I'm going to stay with, you know, me searching for the ultimate pressing of a record. I don't think that there is a proper, real audiophile pressing of this record out. Now, some people would disagree, but I know for a fact that it is the last one to come out, remastered by Jimmy Page, was digital. Zeppelin 2, RLs, right? Robert Ludwig mastered copies, right? 3 of them here. In my opinion, the Monarch pressing is the superior pressing to the RLs. I have one. It stomps the others into the dirt mercilessly, okay? That said, I searched and searched and searched for this thing. I wanted an RL for so long. I'd heard about it. People told me about it. Oh, the hot stamper is the RL. You know, I'm sure you guys are familiar with what is it called? The Better Records site? Is that what it is? The guy who sells all the hot stampers.
Hot stampers, yeah.
Yeah, he scratches out the dead wax so you don't know what it is and all that. He does the legwork for you, whatever. $100. But I heard, you know, these things, yes. These things had been, you know, I'd been learning about that, and I thought, I've got to get an RL. So I bought the Monarch first. I think I paid $50 for it. And then I found 2 other RLs, $6 a piece at separate times. You know, what are you going to do? But the Monarch still reigns supreme. That said, you know, Melinda Murphy just found an insanely clean copy of Zeppelin 2 at what we call here in Kentucky a peddler's mall, right? I don't know what you guys call them, but the thing about the Zeppelin 2 record is it's hard to find a clean original copy. It's insanely hard. These records were partied on, you know. People treated them not so kindly. Like I said, I had a remastered by Jimmy Page copy on loan, and decided that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to hear. So I have not purchased that. I'm still waiting on an all analog.
Did you not like it?
I just thought it just left me flat, kind of flat. You know, I didn't think it was as dynamic as it could have been, you know. Maybe a little bit sterile for me.
I almost picked Led Zeppelin 2 to showcase today. I was going to show that the plangent one, or the one Jimmy Page did, and I found a couple years ago classic records of that.
Oh, yeah.
For like $35, and I didn't know what it was until I got it home, because I hadn't, I'd purged that in the 90s, that record, and that sounds pretty amazing. But I don't have an RL. I probably did before I knew it was an RL back,
Sure. Yeah.
But, yeah.
Wasn't Robert didn't he get in trouble from someone from like kind of hot rodding his lathe, trying to get back in the
everybody knows the story is they cut it super hot. The CEO of the record company, his daughter has a cheesy record player. It's making it skip. He tells them to tone it down. They do, and the RLs become super rare and hard to get. So,
Ahmet Erdogan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
I just heard that on a podcast earlier today. It's so funny, that story. But Michael, in Germany, you also have the classic version of that, right?
I'm coming to it. Give me.
See, I was unaware of this pressing, so maybe there's a grail out there for me after all.
The classic is pretty amazing. Yeah. Okay, Austin.
All right. Next is, I've talked about this band a lot of time on my channel. This is the band that kind of broke my musical mind in terms of listening, but also in terms of creating my own music. This is a Chicago band called Tortoise. This came out in '94 on a then very young Thrill Jockey record label. This actually has Dave Pajo on it, Bob, who was from, I believe, from Louisville, was in the original one, members of Slint.
Yes.
Yeah, this album is incredible. It's kind of jazz-based, experimental. They have double drumming. They have double basses on a lot of songs. Tons of vibraphone and marimba and percussion. Very strange music. Not some of the songs are approachable, but a lot of the stuff is kind of esoteric, and there's like a very loud harmonica and like mumbling words in the background. But for whatever reason, I found this album in the mid '90s when I was coming out of the grunge era, alternative rock, and 120 minutes of MTV, and a friend of mine had this and put it on, and I was like, what kind of music? What do you even call this kind of music? So anyway, I bought this record, I don't know, maybe 95 or 96, and it never left my very crappy turntable I had back in the day. But this album kind of showed me that there's not really any rules, or you can do whatever you want as a musician. This is an original copy, original pressing. These are not hard to find and not expensive. This is kind of quiet. It's not that, the mastering isn't that great. It's on maybe 140 gram vinyl black. They redid it at SAE Mastering, which is in Phoenix, changed the artwork. This kind of minimal art. This is on 180 gram. It was remastered and recut, and it sounds a lot better. And I think, I'm not sure if it was mastered from the tapes, but it was for sure recorded to tape and mixed to tape. But this album's great. Really, really great rhythms. If you like instrumental kind of avant experimental jazz. Like, this is great. I mean, but they're considered post rock, I think, in some circles. But this album, if I had to choose one album that's my most influential album of my life, it's this one, self-titled, from Tortoise.
Awesome.
The remaster is much better than the original in this case.
Yeah, it really is. I think so. It's a little louder and clearer, and there's a little more dynamic. And I think it's very readily available. I don't think it's out of stock or anything. Yeah.
Same mix on both?
Say again?
Same mix on both?
Yes, same. Everything's the same, even the inner sleeve and everything. They just change the outer packaging for whatever reason.
Yeah, I love when that's the thing. I love when they change covers for different editions. Sometimes I know there's this whole thing, and I don't know if you're going to get into it with Music Matters or with Tone Poets, where they emulate the original cover to a T. Sometimes, if they have the original photographs or negatives, sometimes redoing the type opposed to just a rough scan. But some people, as much as we love all this Tone Poet stuff, really that's not how those records look. They never had gatefolds. They never had all this extra stuff. Right. So at one point, I think someone's freaking out on these new acoustic records that are coming out, the Analog Productions series, that I think it's with the next round of Nina Simone, where they're, instead of the Philips label, they're putting, was it Verve or vice versa? One of them's different and wrong. So on the Hoffman forums, their heads are exploding.
Of course.
Yeah, even those records sonically, I mean, Rudy Van Gelder had to make compression choices and, doing some low end cuts to make it listenable on the systems back then,
Yeah. Well, I watched Bob's, Bob's, the recent one he just did about that, about do you go, and this is just a preference, do you go for originals that records sound like what they're intended, the artists and the mastering engineers and the producers put out at the time, but also the limitations of the stereos that people had, they were cut for what people had. Now, with the whole Joe Harley and Ron and all those people at Music Matters and Tone, they hear something on the tapes that they were gobsmacked when they first heard them, that, okay, there was a reason for that. Now, it's just different. It doesn't have to be better, but now we have this revealing systems. Even if you don't have a high-end system, you hear more on most record players' component systems than you did then. So, it's, I don't know.
That's a whole nother can of worms, because, I often wonder, what the intention, the sonic, the original, like take a John Coltrane, how much did he really care about, like, I'm sure he cared that the record sounded good, right? But I don't know if he was necessarily like if that is the end, that end of the recording process, if he really cared that much about it, as much as he just did getting the performances onto tape. And I think Rudy basically took care of all that, and I'm sure they had some say in the process, as they all chose Rudy to do the work. But once they handed it off to him, he made all of those decisions for them. And of course, these days, the material is basically, to the point to where these are historic recordings and almost public domain in a sense. Obviously, they're not, but at this point, you have all sorts of people making sonic decisions about these recordings that have nothing to do with the original artists. They don't consult the families or anything of that nature. They do what they think is best. Right. And that's what we get, So it's really interesting, because as a musician, and I'm sure Michael will tell you this as well, you're never ever 100% happy with a recording once it's done. And if you give a musician the opportunity to revise his work, it'll basically go on forever. It'll never stop. It's like there's always going to be some cringe-worthy thing that's like, oh, if I could have just adjusted that one note right there. Oh, what, we can do that? It's not a good it's not a good thing to get involved in, like constantly revising yourself. So it is interesting to get those original pressings, hear what they sounded like at the time, and then possibly get another pressing from the future and see what, you know, modern engineers are capable of doing with the material. It's really intriguing to hear those, the contrast between those, you know, situations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Germany.
Let's
Michael. Michael froze on us, didn't he? You froze on us, Michael. Are you going to come back from Germany here? Kann ich Ihnen helfen? Was ist das? Geh schlafen.
Am I back?
Okay, you're
I
back.
think my
You
internet.
are.
I said the magic words in German. You
Geschlafen, probably.
Was ist das?
Yeah, back to Led Zeppelin, but another edition I took out of the Holy. This is the new digital remaster, which Jimmy Page is so fond of. Led Zeppelin never has sounded better. I have to disagree. I think mine are what I have are the classic records from Led Zeppelin, because I'm not able, I'm not willing, and don't have the time to go through the dead wax and go through, how do they call it, Messi? Thrift stores. So
Thrift stores, car boots,
yeah. So they sound terrific.
Malls, charity shops.
And in my opinion, these classic records, they sound terrific. And although they are also a bit pricey nowadays, I think, and I'm quite sure, that these are the last analog pressings of Led Zeppelin. I think everything that came out after these classic records are digital.
Jimmy Page doesn't seem to care about analog.
I don't know. Yeah, but you know, they trick us into things. Maybe they tricked you into the CDs. They told us you can't hear the difference from vinyl and MP3. And I thought I'm a mutant because I could hear it. And
Michael, I do want to clarify that when I'm talking about the Jimmy Page mixed copies, I'm talking about the digitally mastered ones, not the classic ones from.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I got that. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And no, I got that. And you know, I'm a bit tired because I want to have analog pressings and masterings from Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, name them, and we will never see them, or Beatles, Matty. Good analog remaster audiophile Beatles.
That mono box might be the last.
Yeah.
They don't want to touch those tapes.
Yeah.
No, they won't. Why, Mazzy? Tell me. You're the Beatles. Why?
You know, I'm one of the Beatle guys. I didn't name my channel Beatle Mazzy on purpose. I didn't want people making BM jokes on me. But it's like the Holy Grail. It's like these things you can't touch anymore. They're in the Abbey Road vault. It's amazing. They sound as good as they are. Of course, they were recorded at a world-class studio at a time. But, you know, I remember when that, again, we're getting off the track a little bit here, but after the black stereo box, I went with a friend. There's a high-end hi-fi store in San Francisco, and Capitol Records, Universal, would have these listening parties. And they had a listening party of the stereo vinyl box. And people were there was like 50, 60 people. They probably sold 40 boxes there that night. And people loved it and loved the sound. And I met the guy who came up from Capitol, and I was asking him about the mono. And he goes, oh, we just got the test pressing of the mono, and we're going through that. It sounds fabulous. And of course, right after that, again, going back to the Hoffman and the brouhaha of Michael Fremer, people started freaking out first in America of the pressings of that stereo set. at Rainbow because there was like, they just did bad pressings, which in a way got to be a bittersweet good thing. But so people who wanted the stereo box were better off getting the European pressings, as at Palace or Optimal, I forgot where it was pressed, but they were actually better. However, because of this, the whole thing got put back a year, and they brought in the fellow from Sony Legacy, Berkowitz, who works on the Dylan bootleg series and the Miles Davis bootleg series. They hired him because the guy who heads Apple now in England, Jeff Jones, used to be one of the head guys at Sony Legacy, all those great CD Birds reissues, expanded things. They knew that. So they went back and they did the master tapes of the mono box. They finally went back. It's amazing they got them to do it. Michael Fremer was involved, listened to it. They went back and did it. And of course, now everyone goes crazy. They were available for 4 years. They didn't sell out right away. Of course, now they're over $1,000 for a box, you know. But it took the stereo fuck ups from Rainbow to all of a sudden to shake things up. Hey man, we better do this right if we're going to do this, and they did. And I don't know what Jimmy Page has, what his beef is with.
I think they don't have the original tapes anymore. I think they
isn't the
don't
rumor
have
the
them.
classic still has the original tapes?
Yes,
Which is
right. Yeah.
Did-
That's
did-
a rumor.
Did Grundman do all those Led Zeppelin classic?
Yeah. Anyhow, you know, but what comes to my mind when you say those are the holy grails, they don't touch them, honestly, then they are worthless. You know, they're in the vault, deteriorating, and in 100 years there's nothing.
I don't know about deteriorate, but you're right. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, these guys that have a shitload of money buy the guitar that John Lennon did on this, or buy the guitar that Led Zeppelin played at, you know, wherever it was, and they have it in their vault.
Well, you know, if you can run the tape to Blue Train, or you can run the tape to, a Love Supreme to make a new vinyl master, a stamper, you can definitely run the tape to Sgt. Pepper or Zeppelin 2. I mean, it's
But,
just
you know,
as
the
important.
thing with Pepper, they had even when Giles Martin did his thing, they had to really fake all the stuff to get the end tones and all the stuff that, you know, I mean, it was done on the fly, you know, some of that stuff, literally, when they were mastering.
Sure.
I mean,
And there's all kinds of studio trickery going on those Zeppelin recordings anyway. Some of it's the speed of the recordings has been manipulated, made slower or whatever. So to get it all right again.
No, but it's not only the Beatles. Take Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. They are not bad. Of course, this Discovery, or how they call it, they are not bad.
the last Pink Floyd were actually Plangent were actually really good, and they're from digital. They're really good.
Yeah, but imagine what they can put out nowadays, a Kevin Gray or a Gruntman or Ryan K. Smith, what they would get out
Kevin
of those
Gray
tapes.
ever sleep? That's what he's like the Stephen King of mastering engineers. I mean, everything is friggin' Kevin Gray, man. Okay, now that I'm not on the Hoffman forum here, I can say that what had happened there, because it was him and Hoffman for a while, and then like Hoffman disappeared. So I don't know what's going on there story-wise, but you know. All right.
Maybe you have to ask Rachel in the VC stream.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here now. And there'll be links below to all 4 channels here, so you can get into it. This, I'm showing Tommy. And for me, in my life, my 2 all-time favorite Who albums are Who Sell Out and Tommy. Everyone I know loves Who's Next, which is great. That's when they became this arena band. From Here and Before, that, like, you know, those end of the 60s here, they were this amazing band. I think this seals the deal. And I just listened to this again. What I'm showing is, I used to have an original track records import, but during my 90s purge, I got rid of it to get the better CD format. But This is a 1980 or 81 MCA promo copy. Now people wonder, even later years when they pressed records, they would put promo copies out. And when I worked for ABC, the MCA, I would get things like this with the MCA thing. This is not a great pressing. This is one of the ugliest labels, in my opinion, that MCA ever did, that thing. But for a long time, this is one of the cleanest copies I found, and it sounds okay. But Michael knows, because if you watch Michael's channel, does these series of labels, and he does classic records. And classic records was probably one of the first, aside from after MoFi, audiophile labels. And I missed that boat. That was mostly in the 2000s. But I most recently paid a shitload money, which I shouldn't have paid. But because it's my favorite album, and I got a classic version that was brand new, sealed, even despite Michael telling me don't buy a sealed audiophile record from 15, 10, 12 years ago, which I did have one issue on it, but it sounds amazing. I played it again yesterday and a little bit of the other one, and I've never heard this record sound as good. But I just love, people forget how great the acoustic guitars are. Pete Townsend acoustic guitars on this record. This record opens up on this classic records copy. And this record goes, to get a good, decent copy now, it's $250 to $350 for one of these. But I did have the very beginning of side 2, there's actually a piece of vinyl, like a blister right at the beginning. So for the first 45 seconds, I get that click, and it's one of those you can't, just flick it off with your finger because there would be nothing underneath and you can see it, but at least it's right at the beginning. So, but this version, the cover, the beauty, I'd like to see this come out again, some kind of analog thing. I'd like to see something like the Tone Poets or the Music Matters go after some of these. MoFi maybe. There's no Who records.
Yeah, but I think not Music Matters, but please consider, Messi, Chad Kassim bought classical records.
So
he bought the tube mastering system from Grundman and Classic Records. He owns all of.
But Pete Townsend obviously doesn't give a shit or won't let him do the rights, which surprises. Maybe obviously he's got hearing issues, but what an incredible sounding record! Every song on this.
The whole series Classic Records did on the Who records is outstanding.
I want Who's Next now, and I bet you that's what a $250 record now.
Yeah, but there is, for example, there is a best of. It's a mono best of the Who, and it's around 30 euros. So, and it sounds gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay, we're back now to Louisville.
Yeah. All right. So pick up from record show, is that what you guys call them? Record shows? That's what I call them. Record fair.
Record shows, record swaps, record fairs. Yeah.
Record peddlers.
Undercurrent.
Bill Evans, Jim Hall, Undercurrent, right? Then they came out with this little sucker here, the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab Silver Series version of the record. I don't know much about the MoFi stuff. I really, I see them around. I've seen them around for years or whatever. I don't have a lot of them, and I thought, well, this is cheap. This is cheap enough, and I think this is the most beautiful cover of all time. Probably got one on the wall up there as well, and I think this was $27, and I got it, and it doesn't quite sound as good as the OG here, which is on this United Artists Jazz label, right? This one seems a bit darker and less, just the whole frequency spectrum seems a little muted. Now, I know that I don't, like I said, I'm not an expert when it comes to these MoFi records, but I know that if it's from the tapes, it generally says original master tapes at the top here. So it does make me question what the source material is for this pressing, where we know what the source material was for the OG. So
what year is that? Do you know?
This one?
What year did the album come out?
Oh, I do not know.
Early 60s for sure.
I'm going to open this really slowly. Nah. Hold your ear.
I'm thinking early 70s, no? Late 60s?
There is no date on this anywhere. I don't know.
I can tell you that this MoFi, the undercurrent MoFi, is considered as one of the worst MoFis in
It's not that great. It's not that great, you know. When I
like it, by the way, but I can't compare it to an original other pressing. If you only listen to this one, it's okay.
Right, yeah. If this is your only exposure to the record, you're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. But it seems muted to me, and that's you know, I was trying to, you know, take the plunge into this audiophile pressing, you know, and then I was left flat, and I thought maybe this isn't for me, you know. The whole
wrong one.
Yeah, I just picked the wrong one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just double checked. It was 1962.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, 62.
And going back to kind of echoing this, this is one of Bill Evans is one of my favorite jazz pianists. This is one of the first Bill Evans records I bought. Michael, I bought the Pure Pleasure version, and every time there's a chord that's like in the lower register to the mid-low register, it always kind of distorts. And I was like, man, this pressing is just not good. And I got also, they reissued the silver label one from MoFi, and it's still there. It's not quite as chunky, but I also just like, it's maybe just the actual tape wasn't that great, so it didn't matter. They just did it from a digital, who knows. But the music is great. The performance on the recording is great.
Fantastic.
And you don't really see covers like that.
No, it's really, really nice.
Mazzy, do you know the photographer on that one?
I did, and I can't remember now because that's one of those things they picked up from it was an art photograph, obviously, and they, you know, there's certain labels. Remember, CTI used to always do that. Used to use these Pete Turner photographs and stuff. Obviously, ECM. It's like getting stock stuff. I mean, it's about those great, rich photographs, you know, type of thing. I love that cover. That's so surreal, and I love, you know, the whole surreal avant-garde.
And totally untypical for this period, isn't it, Mazzy?
Very. Yeah. I mean, you're trying to sell records and like, what the fuck? I mean, you go into a record store and you see that. I mean, what am I buying here? This is like, it's like a painting, but it's a beautiful. That reminds me of sort of 80s semi-commercial photographer stuff you'd see on like the Von Oliver designed 4AD stuff, and in that, and I love that surreal. It looks like a Cocteau Twins cover or something. You know?
Yeah.
Or the Smith.
Yeah, no, Smith did those stock shots of the cover artists, actors, and you know, Morrissey's gay themes of actors who were in cinema.
It remembers me on that one, on this one.
Yeah. All right, Germany.
Austin?
Yeah, me.
Austin. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
when you went off,
Michael.
shifted around.
Sorry.
Get it together.
My neighbors decided to move a bunch of stuff. So I was trying to mute it. When I unmuted it, I hit mute video, so I apologize. If y'all don't follow Bob, pause this video, click the link below, and open a new tab, subscribe on that. He just did a whole shootout on the OG Coltrane Quartet ballads and the new Acoustic Sounds You and Me series. I do not have an original, so Bob can help me here on this. This is a 2003 Speaker's Corner, single 33 RPM. It's fantastic. The one difference I noticed is the ink color on the interior. This is like kind of like a soft chocolate brown. The texture is black, but this is all kind of like, you can't maybe not really tell, but it's like a soft kind of suede color. And for the life of me, I spent probably an hour and a half trying to figure out who mastered this. There's no etching in the dead wax. Speaker's Corner on their website says they have 5 different mastering engineers. On the Hoffman forums, there's no clear answer. People think it was Kevin Gray, but there's no, on Discogs, it doesn't say. So if anyone knows, I'd be curious, let me know. So that compared with the brand new one, actually, no one on the VC's been talking about this. It's weird, the new acoustic sounds. I won't go into that, but of course, with this jacket, you see there that all that ink is black. It's just so clean, the high contrast, beautiful. So the jacket, this got to give the edge to the new one. Sonically, I've played them both back and forth a few times the last few days. There's not that much of a difference sonically through my system, at least. This one maybe is a tad bit deeper in the low end, get a little bit more richness in the low end, but negligible. And if you just have a mediocre to middle system, it probably doesn't really matter. But anyway, Bob, what were your notes on just like a brief Cliff Notes version on the OG?
Sure. I think the OG is your typical Rudy Van Gelder treatment, kind of cut a bit of the bass, accentuating in the mid bass there so that, you get that kind of, you get a lot of drive out of the record, and you're not getting that low end, which seems like to me in the new master, they've restored the low end, like the Tone Poets or any of the recent Blue Note records. Now, somebody did come in on my video and leave a comment that said that they preferred the new analog production ones over their original one. So it was Mazzy, and you know what? To me, they felt very close, very, very close. Maybe the sound stage was a little bit deeper on the new one. I think it comes down to personal preference on that. But you got to have a really clean original just to get into that business.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I have an original mono, and it's a fabulous record. I mean, thing is, it's his contractual obligation record. Like they literally, I think the band went out and picked up the sheet music on the way to the shoot or way to the studio of these standards, and they just did them right there. They didn't really rehearse anything. It's because you can do the wilder stuff. Let's do a ballad record and sell some music. I totally get that, being the commercial side. But my original is well played. It's noisy somewhat, and I'm one of those I'd rather have a quiet record for the most part. Unless there are some other circumstances. It's also the new one is very a little more atmospheric, a little more open. I feel like it's liver. My other version sounds a little deader, although maybe that's because it's mono and it's 60 years old or whatever it is. So if I had to get rid of one, I'd get rid of my original. Yeah, as a collector, I'm going to keep it now, but once I start selling off, I would sell that first, because to grab the record to play it, I probably am not going to do that anymore, unless I'm having you all over and we're doing shootouts and having some of our Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah.
One question to our guest, if I may. You have the OGs, right?
Sure.
And I think that you probably have on the OGs a bit more sharpness.
Yes.
A little more edge. Mm-hmm. And the reason,
for sure.
Is it? It's true,
yeah.
Yes? And
yes.
The reason for that is the Asian market. Today audiophile labels has to dampen, I hope it's the correct term, to put it down, this sharpness, because the Asians doesn't like this sharpness. So they are able, they are able to keep the sharpness, but that is the price we have to pay, because the Asian market is so important to those audiophile labels, and they hate it.
Oh, interesting.
Well, you could get that whole conversation about women hearing higher notes too. And certain music, when I play around, women I've been around and stuff, they can hear that edge in it, and it's more piercing to them.
Well, that this is a kind of an aside, but do you guys believe in EQ? Do you have an EQ in your rig? I do. I actually do.
And frequently I have this one bass. I add one bass, but also I have these B&W speakers that tend to be a little brighter. My main room upstairs, which you all seen, is my living area, and I like playing music there. It's a very live room. There's like a refrigerator. There's
right.
Yeah. So adding that little bass here, down here where I am now in my office, it's carpeted, it's muted, it's dead. I got a fucking drum set in the middle of the room, but the snares are off, so I'm not hearing the snare.
Well, I'm on the clips, so horns. So the highs, they're like shouting at you sometimes. So when the highs are really prominent, it's very obvious, and that's on the Love Supreme and the ballads. Whenever Train is playing hard, it's loud as hell, and it gives you the impression that he is just burning. Where on the Analog Productions acoustic sounds versions, it's a little it's softer, and it's a little more even, a little more refined. So
well, going back to what about ballads, what's great about ballads for a lot of people, ballads is a great introduction to people to jazz and to Coltrane. I know so many people that'll say, oh, I love Coltrane, but I hate his squeaky period. And it's because they hate when Miles Davis, as a gift, gave him that soprano sax and all that high soprano shit. It can be, sometimes if you listen, I love Miles, and I have Coltrane, and I have so much, but every once in a while, if you're not in the mood, and he goes on to that whole squeaky high-pitched thing, man, it can be a little jarring.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, one last thing, as we look at Michael in Dusseldorf, the Impulse shelf, the color of the spine. The top one is the speaker's corner, the bottom one is the acoustic sounds. And if you look in Michael's shelf, you can see the left side of the shelf is the lighter color. So maybe those
you see the white one.
the lone supreme white.
A lot of people got pissy. That's white, but it's always been white on the other one.
I know. Yeah, it's original. It's white. Yeah.
A Love Supreme is the first Impulse title. That's why it's white.
Oh wow! There you go.
Okay.
No.
Michael.
My turn. Okay.
I think.
Again, Mr. Bill Evans. I took out the Electric Recording Company editions, and this time this is the stereo edition, and this is the mono edition. And this is also sometimes the reason why I buy 2 copies of one record. It's not that rare in the jazz scene, and especially when it comes to the Electric Recording Company, that they put out the mono and the stereo version. And this always is an extremely interesting listening to get into the difference between mono and stereo recordings, because they both have their advantages, and you really know the music after you have listened to a stereo and mono edition. And that's, I really can tell everybody that try that one out, try and listen to mono and then the stereo version. It's so interesting. Doesn't matter if it's the Beach Boys or Beatles. Try it out if you haven't already. Very interesting.
Is that wide? Is it very wide stereo on that particular recording? I think I have a cheapo copy of that. That's one I need a better copy of.
The difference is striking. Of course, you're absolutely right. In general, you have a wider soundstage. Of course, when it comes to the stereo editions, it opens up. It's wider. It's more articulated. It's more specific. Where are the instruments? But a mono version usually is, if it's a good one, right into the face. It's very direct. It's more put together, but right into the face, and it has usually a deeper sound stage.
Right.
The stereo one has a wider sound stage. The mono has a deeper, and it's not that a mono that they are all in one place. Mono also has its wide. It's not that it's in that range, but narrower, of course.
I have a question to all of you here. How many of you have either a separate mono table, mono cart, or a mono switch on your amp or receiver, or a box switch box that you can do the Y cable to, you know, because there's a whole thing about, oh, when you play the mono, it's best to use that. I don't have that, by the way. I don't have a mono switch on my thing or a mono cart. So I'm not playing mono, not that you need to, but in the idle,
Right.
perfect way.
I have a mono. My preamp has a stereo spectrum switch that goes to mono. You know, all the way to mono.
Push it when you play mono always, or
You know, sometimes it depends on what it is. When I got to, you know, if I get like a super nice audiophile pressing of a mono record, I'll switch it to mono. Generally, I never do. I just put it on, you know, drop the needle and go with it. But I do have it, and I could, and you know, it's fine. It's it maybe makes a bit of a difference if you have it actually switched to mono, you know, because it's just summing the stereo field, you know, to the point to where it's in both speakers. That's all. You know, it's not anything critical.
Michael, do you have a mono card, or do you switch to mono?
Which Michael? Texas or
I'm sorry, Germany. Well,
Germany? Not now, because
legally change your names. Kyle.
Well, you know, let's say you have a cartridge for $1,000, and in my opinion, it doesn't make sense. You have a $1,000 stereo cartridge, and then you buy a $500 mono cartridge, for example. Listen with your stereo cartridge. It will sound better than your $500 mono cartridge. I'm sure.
Different.
Yeah, you're right, Messi. And that's the danger when it comes to high-end audio. Different is not always better. It's right. Different.
Exactly.
It feels better because it's different, but it's not always better. And so if you're completely through with your system and say, no, that's it, then you can start and think about another X thousand euros or a dollar.
That's a whole it's a deep dive we could go into, but
yeah.
Austin, what about you?
My integrated amp has a mono and stereo selector, and I usually switch it for like jazz or classical or something older stuff, nicer audiophile stuff like Bob. And sometimes I forget to switch it back to stereo. And listen.
I did that today.
It's not sound right. What's going on? I'm like, oh, it's on mono still.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, Michael, that happens to me a lot when it comes to the electronic avant-garde. Some of them are 33 and some 45. And I don't know to how many of those electronic avant-garde music I've listened with the wrong speed.
Sometimes it's better, slower. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that with the Tom York Flea album, Mock. Like the first 2 weeks I had it, I played it at the wrong speed, and I didn't know the difference. You know.
You like that? Huh?
I did that with a Fripp record and thought, man, this thing's wild.
Sometimes you can't see it. It doesn't like call it out that this is 45 or something. It's ridiculous. All right, I'm going to 1986 now. This is where sometimes a tempestuous studio situation could make for a great record, in my opinion. Great pop, psychedelic masterpiece for me is Skylarkin by XTC. This XTC was at a turning point. Obviously, the British band led by Andy Partridge, kind of one of those geniuses in rock and roll that just was another story. they were at a point the label said, look, we need to get you a real producer and someone to produce. They'd worked with Steve Lillywhite and some of the top 80s producers, but they needed a hit. They needed to do a hit, and they had been with Virgin Records, and Virgin Records gives them a list, and the only name I think they recognized at the time, or somebody recognized, was Todd Rundgren. So they go to Bearsville, they record this record. It was a shit show with Andy Partridge and Todd Rundgren. Anyway, this is my original copy, which is a promo copy I got from my Warner Brothers friends. It was on Geffen Records. This record sounds fabulous. This version of it on Geffen. There's a song that became an MTV hit and somewhat got some controversy, song Dear God, which was taken off the album before it was released, and for a lot of conjecture why. And then it was a B-side of a single. Of course, like all the FM stations started playing Dear God. So the second pressing has Dear God on it. But this sounds excellent, does not have Dear God on it. Cut to a few years ago, 2017, they do this box set, and all the records are remixed by Steven Wilson, who does the surround. Steven Wilson is like the king of the surround mixers. And they put on, they expand it to 2 discs and add the singles, Dear God, and a couple other songs from the sessions with the original artwork that Andy Partridge wanted to release. Now, they did they wanted to do this for the cover, which was pubic hairs of a woman, and the back of pubic hairs of a man. And you wonder why retail stores in the UK didn't want to have these on the shelf. So of course, they cut to this record. Now, so sound-wise, interesting thing, around 2010, when they finally were going to put this out again on CD, there was an issue of, and maybe you guys, you musicians might know this, apparently there was an issue they discovered of the polarity was wrong on all the original records. There was a reversal when they mastered it of the wiring, and the engineer who started working on it in 2010 realized the polarity had been reversed, so some of the bass was not on any of the originals, and the way it was. Todd Rundgren says it's bullshit. Andy Partridge said it's not bullshit. They fixed the polarity. It came out with this cover. Sometimes you're so close you don't know it's a man and a woman when you're looking that friggin' close here. They put out the CD with the correct polarity fixed on the compact disc, and then this version with the CD, the 5.1 surround that Steven Wilson does. It sounds fabulous. I don't think it sounds that much greater than the original. So again, going with Bob's thing, do you tweak it to add a little bass on it on your originals? I don't keep everything flat all the time, but I rarely go beyond, +1 on my setting. And mine is a notched to Rotel, and it's a notch setting opposed to just a soft notch. So I get that. But great psychedelic pop masterpiece, great harmonies. Their most popular record, Ecstasy.
Does that have Making Plans for Nigel on it?
No, that's on Drums and Wires. Again, they're one of my favorite bands. Part of the reason they didn't even get more popular because Andy Partridge had this fear of traveling and playing live on stage. So I did see him in '82 at the Stone, the last time they toured America, and he had stage fright. He wouldn't tour, but they were a great band. Him and Colin Moulding and Harrison, I forgot his name, but Dave Gregory were the main 3, and then it was kind of his band. The last 2 records they did, just the 2 of them, but really great collection. And they've done these expanded editions that Steven Wilson has done for English Settlement, which is another great sounding record, really great record. So
did Steven Wilson remix all the Ecstasy albums or just some of them?
A bunch of them, not all of them. It's like in the CD format, there's those 5.1 surrounds that he's been doing with Jethro Tull and Yes, and he seems to be like the prog remix king. In a lot of ways, as much as, going back, and I'm going to bring up one more time at the end here, the Beatles, because I have to, but I'm not a huge fan of the Giles remixes that much. I do like the White Album. I didn't like Sgt. Pepper. That's just me. Everyone else seems to like it. But what Steven Wilson is doing with King Crimson and Yes, I kind of wish he would be able to take those and do some Beatle remixes, because I think you don't like him. You don't.
No, I like him. But it's
That's okay.
always a bit Steven Wilson.
It's his set. Yeah, there's a signature maybe. But like, to me, I don't know. I love Giles Martin, but in a way, is it because, and no, this is no offense to him as an artist, as an engineer, as a producer, is it because he's in the family? The Beatles like to keep in the fucking family, and being heir apparent to George Martin, is that why he's there? Because he's part of the Abbey Road, family. And not, again, he's done great stuff. People like it. I do like the White Album. Abbey Road, I could take it or leave it of the remix, but that's, you love it, don't you?
I do.
It's okay. I like a good Pepper.
Abbey Road's my favorite Beatles record.
Yeah, I get it. See, I was one of those people. Everyone always, goes gaga over like Pepper. You have to get the monos, the way the Beatles intended. To me, my first copy at 13 in '67 was stereo, and I had my first headphones. And oh my God, to me, that represents the change. Stereo atmosphere, shit going through my head. And I wasn't taking drugs or anything. And it was just, oh my God, this is a stereo modern masterpiece, And so, yeah, mono's more rock and roll, tighter, thicker, but I like that. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, almost like pan potting shit,
Sure.
Actually, Abbey Road, I don't mind it. I think Pepper's my only one I didn't care for, but But the thing is, we got them both, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, Mr. Bradley.
All right, allow me to cheat a little bit. All right, because we are
cheating.
we are going hard on time here. So I don't always just buy for audio quality. Here's a couple of giant steps. Just clean, regular standard 70s Atlantic pressings, right? If I see one of my favorite records, it's my favorite Train record, and it's super clean, I can't leave it behind. I bought these, they were both $20 a piece, bought them, right? Let's go to this. James Marshall Hendrix, right? Already experienced, mono, stereo. Wait. 3-color label, right? Later repressing just because it's clean. And then a Japanese mono, right? You got to have those.
And what's the one on your wall?
The one on my wall is also a 3-color that I found at Karma Music in Indianapolis for $5.
How do you like the Japanese pressing?
It's very nice. Very, very nice, actually. But what I really want to talk about is this. Man, Lee Morgan's the Sidewinder, obviously. Listen, this is, I'm trying to catch you guys on this because we all know that the Blue Note Classic Series is about to drop. Sidewinder is on deck. It's one of the first ones they're doing. When I first got into these records, right, the Blue Note records, immediately someone says, I find the Liberty, and someone says, oh, well, wait, sorry, I find the Liberty, and then someone says, yeah, you don't want the Liberty, you want the New York, because that's the first pressing, right? Yeah, it's going to sound way better. And I'm going, do what? And they say, yeah, you got to look at the address on the label, and it's going to, those are the ones people want. That are you got to have the address that correlates with the time of pressing or whatever. So now I'm thinking, okay, do they really sound any different? I mean, if you know how records are made, they make plates, they press them. Did they use the same plates on the Liberty as they did on the New York? I don't know, but I can tell you this: the New York flattens the Liberty. The Liberty sounds good, sounds fine. If you've only heard the Liberty, you're going to be very impressed with it. But the New York is cut hotter, and Louder isn't always better, but it is louder, and it is cut hotter. There is more bass. There is more dynamic range in the instrumentation. I mean, obviously, Lee Morgan is a beast and a perfect master on the trumpet. Me myself, I'm a sax man, but you know, when you have a lineup like this, you know, Joe Henderson, perfect master, Billy Higgins, perfect master, Bob Crenshaw, Barry Harris, the whole deal, you're going to have you know, if you got a clean version of this record, you're going to be in great shape. That said, I am going to buy the new classic series Blue Note for sure. There's no doubt about it. It's not even a question. People say, well, you got the OG, you got a Liberty. Why do you need it? I need it. I need it. I gotta have it. I need to know, first of all, it's going to be dead silent. It's going to be dead flat. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, but I gotta know. I gotta have it. I got it. These are not gatefold records. So, you know, everyone was complaining, and I understand they're not getting the Tone Poet treatment. I get that, but these are not gatefold records. These are single sleeve records. If they get the printing right, they get the printing right. And I mean, I'm in. I'm all in on it. I'm getting every one from that series.
I wish I just would do heavier covers, not gatefold, but just heavier. Like,
sure.
Like the Kraft reissues, Kraft recording.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, but Messi, you have the music matters, so what?
I have an SRX of that. So I don't have another one. I've never had another issue of that. And I was lucky to get that SRX. And so I feel I don't need to compare. I probably won't get any of these new ones because it's except for the except for the Jimmy Smith. I have them all.
I force you into them. I give everything. I will give everything that you buy them.
I'm not going to because I won't. I'm not against. Look at, we're doing this here.
You're not going to get no.
I'm not against multiple copies, but I have all those records on MMJ.
Okay.
So, except the Jimmy Smith, which I'll get.
So then we are doing a video about them, and you sit there and can't say anything.
I'm just gonna sit in a far corner one day and sit there. I'm gonna smoke a joint, have a martini.
Oh, nice cover, nice cover.
I mean, but the reality of it is you were talking to, let's just go with the Amazon price. Okay, I know that's not, you know, whatever, but $21, right, is basically what the Blue Note 80s were selling for on Amazon.
You can get them $18 on sale.
Right, and we're talking about, you know, Wayne Shorter. We're talking about hopefully Blue Train at some point. We're talking about Lee Morgan and
Moaning.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, I can't. I will not say anything bad about it. I said something to a guy on Record Store Day, a record store owner, and he kind of, you know, he's like, yeah, those titles, you know, he was more hyped about the Tone Poet series because those are lesser known titles and more interesting to him. But
these need to be in print. And I totally support them in print. I just know I don't need them. If the next year they issue some I don't have, of course I'll be right in getting them. I'm just not going to double up on those because if I had originals, I would, because I'd like to compare them. But the ones I have are, you know, in the last 5 years. So.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have you know, if you're satisfied, you're satisfied.
Yeah.
Just this morning, Don did if you follow the Blue Note YouTube, he did like an introduction to the series, and he's got his glasses on and his dreads, and he's, hey, we're gonna do this. It's well worth a minute of your time to watch that.
Oh, I'm going to be watching that as soon as this is over.
Okay, Austin.
Okay, I'm going off of jazz. I'm going to talk about my own music because I don't have that many double copies of things, but this is one I do. This is the 2017 release by Val Murray called Clear Language. This is the deluxe version, which was hand numbered to 500. And comes with a big fold-out newsprint poster, and it is on. It also has, you probably can't see, it has, the text is blind embossed, so it's
Nice.
embossed with no ink. It's really nice.
Did you hand sign them?
They're hand numbered.
Is that your handwriting?
I think it's someone from the record pressing plant. These were pressed at Gotta Groove, which is a Cleveland plant. Just okay, in my opinion. I don't know. The label wanted to use them for some reason. We ended up doing it. One of those things where, kind of like Bob, you can always edit and tweak forever as a musician, and especially for me that I care about the packaging and the vinyl and the pressing and the mastering. Like, I could literally say, like, this test pressing is bad, send it back, let's do it again forever. Like, there's always going to be something. At some point, you just have to say, okay, we're going to, it was a delay. We have to push it back 3 months. Just go for it. The percentage of the listenership listening on vinyl doesn't really, for us at least, doesn't really delegate things to be pushed back. Anyway, the deluxe version is on this kind of bone white vinyl.
Nice.
I personally don't really care about colored vinyl or variants. I also don't like that I can't see if there's any dust on it that easily. So this was limited to 500, and the rest of the first pressing was done on black vinyl. Everything's the same. The text is there. It's not embossed, and it doesn't have the insert. The black kind of jumps out a little more out of the speakers to me. I don't know if that has to do with the physical makeup of the white.
Yeah, but that's a big discussion always. No, does colored vinyl sounds not as good as black vinyl, or ever going on discussion now?
Sort of why I wanted to choose this one. I always will go black if I.
Were they pressed at the
same plant, the same everything. The only thing that's different is the actual vinyl material that was pressed into, as far as I know. Neither of them sound. This just sounds a little kind of punchier. This is kind of quiet, dynamic music, piano, minimal guitars and strings and some electronics and stuff. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you strictly only buy black pressings?
I don't think there's a difference. If everything else is equal, I know there's discussion. I have some, if they're pressed well and masters well, and you're right, the one thing is you can't always physically see the issues on colored, but I don't think there's a problem. I mean, black vinyl in the early 80s, 70s, during the oil crisis was mixed with a lot of crap, and that was black. So it just depends, Again, I've said this many times on this. I actually like Dynaflex. Dynaflex people like to joke about. They sound really good. Those RCA, the Bowies, Jefferson Airplane, that Lou Reed. I mean, it's kind of a joke. I used to literally bend them like this to show people what a joke they are. But they don't sound any worse. I think you saw that. Is it one of the labels? Is it audio?
It's a Sade.
Well, isn't it Acoustic Sounds or one of the companies, or no more 200 gram, which I think is great.
Analog Productions.
There's Analog Production. They're stopping 200 gram.
They said that there's a lot of waste that happens, so there's like an extra round of quality checking quality control. They have to check on.
Our turntables are set. Really, that could affect if you really go from 140 or 120 to 200.
Well, Chad from Acoustic Sounds, he says that different colors can sound different, depending on the stock. And if you've ever seen one of the UHQR records, those one steps, I was part of an unboxing on the Hendrix one, and I'm in a room full of audio files, and it's supposed to be this ultra pure virgin clarity vinyl. It's like a trademark thing, and we cut the box open and when the vinyl is revealed, it's like kind of it's like a white kind of translucent vinyl, and these guys' hearts just dropped because they're like, colored vinyl, and it's like, no, wait, that's not colored. that's just the color of it, So it's funny how the audiophile brain is you know, we hear these things and then it becomes the law of the land when maybe it's a little more nuanced than that, I think, most of the time, you know. So, you know, trust your ears. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we're over.
Or the record gets repressed and it's only on a colored vinyl, like, but you don't have any other choice. You got to go for it.
That's right. Like the J&K Stone Bone that just came out on Record Store Day. You know, you're not going to get that anywhere else. And it's red.
Dusseldorf.
So I go right back to where Mr. Bradley has left us. 80s and Basra Music Matters. So, and I think we will
Music Matters
see.
one seems to be upside down.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm terrible. Sorry.
I thought maybe they
Music
put the cover
Matters.
upside down.
Thank you. And I think we will see. I think we will see a wave of videos when people compare these classic blue notes, sidewinder, moaning, name them with the Music Matters, and there are a few out already. Basra is one of them, which is out on the 80s series and as a tone poet, 45 round per minute with the beautiful covers. And I compared them, and let's say it's 1-0 for Music Matters up to now, because this one it's better. It sounds better in every aspect than the 80s series, but that can change, of course. It doesn't have to be the same with the Sidewinder or McCoy Tyner. That can change. But in this case, the 45 round per minute is simply better.
I like that 80s. I only have the 80, and that's great percussive record.
Yeah, it's outstanding record. A little difficult, but outstanding. But you have on the Music Matters, you have more room, you have more dynamics. Of course, you have to stand up a little more, but the sound is of course not as 10 times better. Always, those are always nuances, always. But it's in the nuances, it's better.
And they're pressed at different plants too. Does that have anything to do with it?
Probably. The 80s are pressed over here in Germany at Optimal. And this is another very, very strange thing. I don't know who said it. I've heard it in one of the VC comments that they do is it as an 80 series because they press them here in Germany, and then they can widen their base here in Germany. But that's okay. This would be logical, but it's completely crazy because they press them in Germany, ship them over to the US, and then Michael in Düsseldorf orders them, and then they ship them back to Europe. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I wonder why they chose Optimal for the.
I have no idea.
Maybe they gave him a little deal.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Bob's got it.
But I've been seeing Optimal kind of pop up more and more recently. And I know they also do a lot of the jacket, and they can print. They do the paper printing. They do a lot of book printing too.
There's no payola in the music business.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do my second to last one, and I'm going to leave any indie hipster cred I have is left on the table here. And I'm going to show one of the great sounding records in my collection, an original, and then acoustic or analog productions. And it's the song that every baby boomer sees on Pledge Night on PBS every week. But Peter, Paul, and Mary. Now, the kid laughs. The kid laughs. Of course they do. I dig rock and roll music on here, but it opens up with Rolling Home, Leaving on a Jet Plane, a John Denver song. Now, this record is produced by Milton Oakham, who produced all these early Peter, Paul, and Mary records. And it's a fantastic sounding record. Albert Grossman basically put this record together to to sell Bob Dylan songs, essentially. He brought the group together. If you've seen the Coen brothers film Inside Llewellyn Davis, it's kind of loosely based on that whole like scene and story. But this is the 33. I know Michael has, I don't know if you have the 45 or anything. This is, I would say this could be the best sounding record I have in my collection.
Unbelievable.
More than anything else. The acoustic guitars on this, it's, first of all, it's got Paul Winter, remember the Winter Consort in the 70s, kind of like kumbaya kind of hippie jazz kind of stuff. Paul Butterfield is on here. Harvey Brooks, one of the great session bass players at the time, who played with Super Session with Steve Stills and Al Cooper and that whole New York scene. I tell you, every instrument you can hear separately and it flows really great together. I put this record on, and I'm not one of those, you know, one of those old analog type of audiophile guys that wants to buy a record and put on just because it sounds good at a audiophile show, the same fucking Diane Krall records and everything just because. Now, I like Diane Krall records, but you know, there is a bit of that snootiness that people like to dump on audiophiles, which I'm not in. I touch my toe in it, not, you know. This is a great record, so fuck you if you think it's not hip enough for you. It sounds credible. Just a little side note, you know why they call it's funny. They're dressed like in roaring, you know, the Roaring Twenties kind of outfit, yet the album's called 1700, which would make no sense, but this is the Warner Brothers catalog number 1700. That's why it was called that. So
I thought it has something to do with Bonnie and Clyde.
well, that's the thing. That didn't happen in 1700. So
right.
incredible sounding record. If you like great acoustic guitar, nice bass, not heavy-handed in any way, great harmony vocals.
Fantastic record. You're right.
Check that out. I've never heard that.
You have to, Michael. You will love it. You will love it.
Well, it's very acoustic. You like acoustic-y, you know. I usually have to change out of my black when I play that record, you know. So, put on a tie-dye t-shirt or something, you know.
Butterfly collar or something.
Okay, Bob.
Is this the last record?
The last round.
Okay. Well, let's stay in the same vein as what Mazzy's in now. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. That's right. Regardless of how you feel about Axl Rose, one of the most intense and extreme frontmen of all time, as far as I'm concerned, okay? Yeah, I see you over there, Mazzy. I know you get your opinions about Axl Rose, but here's the deal.
I'm not opinionated at all.
This is the audiophile reissue of the record. You know, it's pretty fancy. It's, you know, it's got the Robert Williams artwork real nice and big, right? And it sounds good. You know, if you're in the Les Pauls and the Marshalls and, you know, that kind of thing, you know, you're going to like it. And I do like it. It sounds great, right? But when I hear this, the OG, right? Or this with the artwork that most people are more familiar with. This is how I remember the album sounding. This is what 1987 sounds like to me. And when I put it on, that's what it happens. I go right back to that moment, riding at 10 speed, with no hands, down the road, with a Walkman on, listening to this record. And there's something to be said for that, you know? There really is. There's something to be said for an audiophile pressing with an etched 3D holographic side. But, you know, it's one of those things. You know, the original artwork was on the inside, you know, pretty risque, if you will, you know. No, you know, it's a pretty controversial. They threw that out right away, right? So most of us had this, and, you know, I actually got the first pressing and then thought, no, I got to have it the way that it was, you know, back when I first encountered the record. And this was it. And believe me, the bullshit that was going on at the time you know, with the Wingers and the Warrants and the White Snake was okay. But Guns N' Roses was like, you know, kind of the death knell to that stuff on a certain level, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, they wore some makeup too, okay? But they definitely had a harder edge about it. I mean, after all, the tune on this record called Rocket Queen actually has a track of Axl Rose having sex with a woman in the vocal booth, okay? This is you know, it's some outsider stuff ultimately, and a lot of, you know, I mean, it's you know, it is what it is, but it's a pretty extreme piece of art, I would say. And these guys, you know, it's iconic in every way. I mean, they only have really 2 real records, and they go out and tour and they sell out everywhere they go. But those pressings, the OG sounds really good. You know, they took a lot of care when they pressed that thing, and the audiophile one sounds equally as good. I mean, it's
who mastered the audiophile one. You
what?
know that? Do you know who mastered the audio?
I have no idea. Let me take a look. Maybe there's some.
You know,
No.
Bob said something really important. I think what you said, it's so important that some of these preferences, like me talking about Abbey Road and not loving Giles Martin, even though I think it's interesting and fun, I've heard those records for 50 years. I hear Sgt. Pepper in stereo for 50 years. Hearing this thing he does where something's there that I've never heard before is jarring. Now, as an anthropologist, it's kind of cool to pull it out and hear another version. That's why if I'm going to listen to that, I'd rather listen like Michael and I sent Michael something of the Escher tapes from the White Album, the demo stuff, which is not fucking with the original thing, which again,
Sure.
I'm not sacrilege. I don't mind hearing that, but it's all baked in. Like, I don't know that record. I mean, I've heard it that you just showed.
Yeah.
So if I put that on, I wouldn't have this preconceived a stereotype of what, you know, what I'm used to. That's
Right.
important on any of these.
Yeah. One last thing. I'm going to cheat again, guys, but you know how it goes.
No problem.
Mazzy showed maybe possibly the best sounding recording in this collection a second ago. And I just got one that I think is maybe, I was going to show it in my next video, but I'll show it to you guys now. I think this thing is in the running, and I put it on and it floored me. And it's right here. This is the Neil Young mastered from the tapes Harvest that's you can get, and it's out now. I have an OG, obviously. It sounds fine or whatever, but when I put this on, you know, I never really cared much for A Man Needs a Maid. I mean, what the hell is that? I'm like, this would have been a perfect album if not for that tune. And then it comes on.
It's great.
And it's like, oh my God.
The orchestration, right?
It's insane. It's like, this is incredible. I mean, it's super quiet, and I mean, it's just, when you're a guy like me and you know the sound of instruments, you know, the P bass on this record is as P bass as you're gonna get. Like that's the Fender Precision bass, right? And it has a particular sound. And when you put this on, you go, holy shit, God, man, that is as P bass as it gets. You know, Neil's guitar. I mean, this thing. If you're watching this right now and you don't have this, if you don't have Harvest, this is the one. It really is the Neil Young archive stuff. So I mean, it's fantastic.
That's hard to get, and the only guy that in-grooves guy is a guy that gets it in every once in a while.
I just wanted to say it will be a very hard to get collector's item soon. I'm quite sure that this one
Barnes
will
and
be hard
Noble.
to get. Barnes and Noble, okay.
Barnes and Noble. That's where I got it.
Those are the kind of places to find stuff that if you get into one, if you have a physical one in your area, there's stuff that's been sitting in the bins there.
Yeah, if I strike out at every record store I go to, I said, well, let's stop by Barnes & Noble and see if they have any audiophile stuff. And sure enough, they did. So, Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay.
Sorry, take extra time,
Oh.
guys.
Austin.
All right, last round for me. This is an album. Bill Evans, Portrait in Jazz.
Nice.
This is the sorry for more Bill Evans. Sorry, guys. This is
problem.
2003 Analog Productions 0045. So 2003, that's pretty early on for Analog Productions. And I finally found a copy. The cover, as you can see, there's like pretty heavy ringware on one corner. It's okay. The vinyl is near mint. It's great. And I searched high and low and finally found a good clean copy. And about maybe 2 weeks later, they released this. So these are both, the first one, this is cut by Kevin Gray and Steve Hoffman. Sounds incredible, beautiful. The jacket is somewhat flimsy, but it is glossed, and you know, Analog Productions sometimes puts both the records in one single sleeve, which I'm not a fan of, but whatever. This one, cut by Krieg Wunderlich, and sounds incredible as well, on the one-step formula there. Now, I sent Michael in Dusseldorf a video. I don't know if you saw this email. I put this on. I hadn't opened it because I used to just play the Analog Productions one. I'm like, man, I need to open this. I want to do a comparison, doing some research for this video. And I put down side A, and what comes out of the speakers is the first song on side A of Stevie Ray Vaughan's Texas Flood. So, I mean, when did this come out? Almost 2 years ago now or something?
Dude, what?
And so I just opened it. I bought it from Music Direct, and there's a guy there that I've talked with customer service. I sent him an email, and I made a video, showing the label, showing me dropping the stylus, and you hear from the speakers that Strat tone coming out. And like, I'm sure somehow the stamper got mixed up on one of the batches. This is number 1043. And so I took a picture of the dead wax and sent him the thing, and he said, oh yeah, we made extra copies of that side, and they sent it to me. So that one was correct. So now I don't have to listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan on side A, and side B, go back to Bill Evans. But obviously, if any of you have any of these, the one-step boxes there, they are not cheap, and they sound incredible, and they're just, everything is so beautiful about everything about them. So
I've been staying away from those.
And they always skyrocket immediately once they're fully gone.
So will you keep both versions now?
Yes, I will. And the only other, I'm not sure if this was done in any other way, in an audiophile way. Analog Productions, of course, has the Riverside box set, which includes this, but that's out of reach at this point. But I mean, they both sound great. This is actually cheaper than this one now, which is funny.
Really?
Discogs, yeah.
But which one do you like more? What do you think? Which one is the better one?
I listened to this twice through, so I haven't had to spend enough time with it, I don't think. I'm kind of used to this one. But can't go wrong.
You can't, that's true. My last turn?
Oh.
Am I right?
This is less space on the shelf, if that's an issue.
Always an issue. You work your way around it though.
I don't get it. So again, with Analog Production, maybe you know that record, probably have heard of it. And this is the 45 round per minute Analog Production. And you know, sometimes when you think it can't get any better, it gets better. And then again, you buy 2 times the same record, but on different pressing. This is the SRX version, and I needed it because it's better. Silent, dynamic. What can you do? Iconic album.
And that's coming out on the classics next year.
Probably, yes.
It is. It's June. That's a June release.
I think together with Idle Moments. But I'm not sure.
He already has the dates memorized. He's getting the records.
But he don't get them at all.
I'll tell you why I know this. I tell you, because I literally yesterday I got assigned that album for my Blue Note 4100 series. They finally got me off of,
No, you don't do it.
no more
No.
Horace Parlan for me.
Yeah.
No Horace Parlan for you.
I've
No, I
done
can't
two Horace
accept that.
Parlans. I did that record, I taped it, and I mentioned in my video that it is coming out. I have an SRX too. So I mentioned that record. I love that record. And it's a great, easy entrance to jazz, and especially jazz guitar. And it's such a bluesy record. It's so cool. So that's why I know about it. I'm not getting it, Bob, but I want all my friends to get it, and they can get it for $20.
Then get some and give it to your friends.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, I have a question about on the SRX stuff. I don't have any of the SRX myself. The vinyl formula they say is Baraka P-Dub's done the flashlight thing. It's similar to the one step in terms of the formula at
I think it's identical. I think it's identical.
You know,
And
there were a few Music Matters records that were not SRX, but by accident they got pressed SRX, and you can see it. There was people on the forums because they were holding it up, and I forgot what record it was last year on the forums there. But there was one record I guess they had the stuff set up, and they did a pass of something that wasn't SRX, and sure enough, and they confirmed it with MMJ, and actually MMJ was actually surprised.
I think that this strange 1 hour available desire from Bob Dylan, Messi. I know.
Instagram is where is that, man? Don't look at your emails. You see someone post something on Instagram.
Yeah, I think that this also may be on that vinyl. I can't imagine otherwise. Of course.
Well, I tried to get the Desire that came out last year, and it went out of print. So I just happened to see that the other day, like Thursday or Friday, and I just went for it. Then it sold out that night, 1,000 copies. So. Okay, I'm going to close out with the phrase, "There's always a Beatle connection." And as Bob would say, coming in at boom. Imagine we missed a tour. The songs from the ill-conceived motion picture were only a few songs that were on an EP in the United Kingdom. In America, we had actually a full album, which I would argue is probably the Beatles' best psychedelic record.
Great record.
Even more than Pepper. But the one I'm going to say, and this is again an education for Michael in Dusseldorf, we're going back to the Horzoo label. And he laughs at it because apparently Horzoo is like a friggin' department store chain in Germany.
No, Messi. No, sorry.
Oh,
Horzoo
a magazine.
Is a German television magazine. Every huge one. Every German household bought Horzoo. Then you have the program. We had 3 programs, and we looked in the Horzoo. What do we watch today? And every once in a while, Horzoo put out a record or a toaster or a jacket. And those records were pressed in millions. And those were the cheapest records you could buy.
Good job, because the EP is mono. The American edition, even the stereo American edition, for years, Penny Lane, All You Need Is Love, and I think I might be screwing this up, but someone's going to write it in the corrections because they always do, rightly so. Baby You're a Rich Man are in mono on this. There was never those 3 tracks in stereo until Horzoo puts them out true stereo. And I remember this came out around 71 or 72, the original Horzoo. This is the original. There's a second, I can't remember, this is the original. I have both. One's a reddish kind of Horzoo logo. And then later there's an Apple logo, a German version. Now, the other interesting thing we're talking about, when I first thought about this, back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, I never bought, this pressing's a better listen. I bought cover variants or track variants, different songs. But the key to this, I remember flipping out when I put this on and I played I Am the Walrus. You know, the beginning of I Am the Walrus, it goes dun 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 dun. There's an extra bar, so it goes dun 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 dun. That's clipped off every other version. And to me, as a 18-year-old, hearing that after hearing for 5 years I Am the Walrus, it was like, what the fuck? How different is that? So that's where my thing about multi-copies kind of started, with Beatles, with different covers. Of course, I love this purple cover, over this in a certain way, but this is great too. So this is a necessity for a Beatle collector.
But you didn't get that one in the US. The Sotsu you don't get in the US, United States.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was buying imports because we, especially in cities like San Francisco and LA and New York, I'm sure other cities have import sections in record stores. And, when I saw the cover, I mean, I just bought it because of the cover. And of course it was Beatles. I didn't know about the stereo thing back then until years later, but in the 70s, this is the only time you could get those 3 songs in stereo, in true stereo. So.
Interesting.
Awesome. That was fun, guys. Thank you so much.
So, Bob Bradley, thank you for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
Anytime.
Do we try to hold up an album real quick to get a little thumbnail?
Oh, yeah, let's pick one record to hold up. Hold it a little
Mike, not the woman from last time.
Oh, sorry guys, I was moving.
All right, we got it.
Michael's he'll retouch it and fix that, take the silver out of my beard and everything. Anyway, I love doing these. These are fun. You guys are great. And we hope everyone likes it. There'll be links to everyone's channel below, possibly a few other little key links. I think we should put links in this time, Michael, of both the musicians' bands.
Got it.
So,
Explorers in the system.
Yeah. So Bob, in a rejoining respond email, put whatever link you want us to include, because you're working on a record now too.
I am, yeah.
When's that coming out?
Oh God, the pandemic is it gives challenges,
Well, this was fun. Buy multiple copies. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time. And the vinyl community and Four Corners and Mazzy loves you. Take care.
Peace.
Bye.